Chapter 2, Section 4, Peculiarities of the Superior Races. Then follows thy question, what are the peculiarities of the superior races by which they are differentiated from each other? If by peculiarities thou meanest differences as of species under the same genus, which are distinguished by opposite characteristics, as rational and irrational under the head of animal, we by no means admit the existence of such differences in beings that neither have one common essence, nor characteristics diverse from one another, nor have received an organization from a common source, which is undefined and yet defines the peculiarity. Footnote 15. Plato defines essence as that which has real being, and describes it as colorless, formless, and intangible, visible only to the mind or higher reason that guides the soul. If, however, thou supposest the peculiarity to be a certain simple condition limited in itself, as in primary and secondary races, which differ in their entire essence and in the whole genus, thy notion of the peculiarities is reasonable. For these peculiarities of beings that always exist will all be in some manner set apart, separate, and simple. The questioning, however, is going forward to little purpose, for it behooves us, first of all, to ascertain what the peculiarities are in regard to essence, then in regard to power, and so after that, what they are in regard to energy. But as thou hast now put the question in reference to certain peculiarities which distinguish them, thou speakest only of the peculiarities of energies. Hence, thou askest the difference in them in respect to the last things as mentioned, but art passing over unnoticed, without questioning the first, and as relating to the elements of variableness, the most important of them. Moreover, there is something added in the same place in regard to active or passive motions. This is a classification not at all proper as it relates to the superior races, for in none of them is there the contrast of active and passive, but certain of their energies are to be contemplated as unconditioned, unrestrained, and without relation to anything opposing. Hence, we do not admit in regard to them that there are such motions as active and passive in respect to the soul. For we do not concede self-motion from moving and being set in motion. But we suppose that there is a certain unique self-originating motion which is its very own, and not an aptitude derived from an outside source, taking from it action in itself and a passive condition by itself. Who then may admit in respect to the races superior to the soul that they are to be distinguished by the peculiarities of active and passive motions? Footnote 16. Plato bases upon this fact the immortality of the soul. The soul originates its own action and receptivity by volition. This volition is self-motion, and is that quality of moral freedom which has placed human beings above and apart from the animal tribes. Further, therefore, that expression which is added, or things consequent, is inconsistent with their nature. For in the case of those of composite nature, and of those that exist together with others or in others, or that are encompassed by others, some are conceived of as leading and others as following, some as being themselves essences, and others as contingent upon essences. For there is an arrangement of them in regular order, and there intervenes unfriendliness and disagreement between them. But in regard to the superior races, they are all to be considered as self-subsisting. The perfect ones take rank as chiefs, and are separate by themselves, and neither have their substance from others or in others. Thus there is nothing about them that is consequent. In no respect, therefore, is their peculiarity characterized from these. And now there occurs at the end of the question the natural distinction. The question is whether the essences are to be known by energies, physical motions, and things consequent. Everything, however, is to the contrary. For as the energies and motions made up the actual substance of the essence, they would themselves likewise be dominant in regard to their difference. If, however, the essences generate the energies, being themselves previously separate, they impart to the motions, energies, and things consequent that which constitute the differences. This mode, therefore, is contrary to what is supposed in the present bunt to find the peculiarity. In short, however, whether thou imaginest that there is one race of gods and one of daemons, and in like manner of heroes or half-gods, and after the same course of things of unbodied souls, or whether thou supposest that there are many races in each category, thou demandest that the distinguishing of them shall be according to peculiarities. For if thou supposest each race to be a unit, the whole arrangement of divine orders according to the more perfect classification is overturned. Footnote 17. In the Assyrian or Chaldean plan of divine orders, the following are instanced by Damascios. 1. The intellectible gods. 2. The hyparchs or superior archons. 3. The archons. 4. The archangels. 5. The Azonai, or unclassified who belong to no defined jurisdiction. 6. Local genii. This arrangement is hinted at in Part 8. However, they are defined by these according to race, as it may seem satisfactory, and there is not among them one common definition in relation to essence, except that those that are prior are distinguished from the inferior races. It is not possible to find out their common boundaries. And even though it should be possible, this very thing takes away their peculiarities. Hence, the object which is sought is not to be found in this way. He, however, will be able to define their peculiarities who reasons upon the analogous sameness in the higher orders, as for example with the many races among the gods, and again with those among the daemons and half-gods, and lastly with souls. Hence, it has been demonstrated by us through this argument what is the right course of the present investigation, its limitation, and how it is possible for it to be made.